Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of SCELZI Says. I'm Joe Castello, along with four-time NHRA champion Gary SCELZI. Gary, welcome back.
Joe, been a long time. Good to hear from you.
It has been a long time. We let the season conclude. We got to settle and see how it all worked out. We've had some surprises at the end of the year, and now we're back with Gary SCELZI to get your view. What's on your mind, Gary?
Joe, what a finish to a season, huh? You talk about this countdown, it couldn't have been pictured any bit better. I mean, except for the losers, of course, but you're going to have winners and losers. But damn, you talk about excitement, and you talk about coming down to the wire, and you talk about a pressure cooker for the drivers. Absolutely amazing. Sit on the edge of your seat. Everything that you could wish for as a drag race or just a race fan in general. I thought it was amazing and enjoyed the hell out of it.
It was super exciting. I was in Pomona. At the last second, Gary, I went out there. I was looking for you. Where were you?
You know, actually, my kids had a race that weekend, and my oldest son, Dominic, is going to start his sprint car career next year. And we actually had a test day on Saturday and Sunday. So we were in Hanford, California, making laps in a dirt sprint car, getting ready for my oldest son's future next year.
Wow, very exciting. How did he do?
Unfortunately, he did amazing, and it looks like it's going to cost me a boatload of money next year. He's just he's amazing, and I know all parents say that about their kids, but he's so mature beyond his 14 years of age that I'm just very proud of him and his 9-year-old brother. They both won the championship this year in their respective classes, and you know, everybody asked me about them going drag racing, and you know, that could be in their future down the road, but I wanted them to learn how to drive. And they've kind of followed this open wheel thing. And so they drive cars that are sideways on dirt. They learn throttle control. They learn the sound of engines RPMing. It's a pretty neat thing. It's a different path, but I like the path I'm going with them.
I agree with that move. And you look at guys like Doug Coletta, who came from the world of outlaws and just has that innate natural driving ability. You can apply those skills and focus and learn drag racing a lot easier than you can take a drag racer and all of a sudden learn how to run on dirt or road courses or ovals. It's a little different skill set. I think you're making a good move there.
You know, Joe, before we get on to our show, it's so important. A lot of the younger drivers, second-generation drivers that have come up, when I was a kid, I'm 51 years old, not very proud of that, but I am. When I was a kid, I took my dad's pickup out in a dirt field and did Brodies in the mud and in the dirt and learned how to slide and learned how to control a car. My brother had a Corvette at one time, and I learned how to drive a stick shift, learned how to speed shift. Learned a lot of things that if kids did that today, they'd end up behind bars, lose their driver's license. And, you know, it was a lot more relaxed. So a lot of the kids now don't learn how to drive unless it is on a drag strip. And unfortunately, you know, if you've got balls and you're able to hold the throttle down, it's great. It's when things go wrong that get you in trouble. So you have to be able to control a car that gets sideways and have throttle control and know when to not overdrive it and let it settle down, as I hear Mike Dunn say several times on the broadcast. You've got to let the car settle and get straight before you get back on the throttle. Some of the younger drivers have gotten themselves in trouble in a big way, lucky that they didn't hurt themselves bad or someone else because they didn't learn that. They've had to learn by on-track experience. Very hard to come by sometimes, you know, in our sport. So there's not a whole lot of room. Our cars aren't made to crash. So I like the path I'm taking. I like the direction they're going. And if it does come time to go drag racing, I think I could teach them a thing or two.
I think so, too. I think it's a great move. Now, let's talk a little bit about these champions that we have crowned recently and some big stories. Starting off with Del Worsham. We had talked about the championship leading up to it. It played out perfectly. We got to see every big run that we wanted to, and even some on top with the final round against Tony Schumacher, a 79 versus a 79. Del Worsham goes into the history books as the 2011 champion, his first championship, and then surprises everybody by retiring from driving.
You know, Joe, that night that it happened, I texted Del and I said, you know what? And I feel this way not only about Del, but a few of the other drivers. One of them is Ron Capps. I said, you were a champion, you just didn't have the ring. And now he does have the ring. He drove a race second to none. And I've got to be honest with you, Tony Schumacher did the same thing with Alan Johnson, and Tony does it every day. You know, it's hard to say that when you race these guys that they're that good. But, you know, Tony never folded under pressure, did a great job, was amazing. Dell had that problem at Reading. You know what? It's one of those things in a million. Dell has won way more races on hole shots and out driving people and out pedaling than he's ever lost. It's just that one was under such a microscope. And it's tough driving for Alan Johnson because you're expected to win. When I took that seat over, I filled in for Blaine Johnson. You know, you should be the world champion. You should be this without learning or any, tough adjustment. Very tough to drive the car. You can ask Tony and Dell those same things, and Larry Dixon for that matter. But Dell drove his heart out on Sunday and became the champion. And I don't know, he did it because he's that good. The Fram car, Spencer Massey, that kid is a champion. He's a badass. His average light is a 5.0 something. I mean, every single time that kid comes to the starting line, he's an animal. And no different. Todd Okahara and Phil Schuler, unbelievable, phenomenal guys. Antron Brown. I mean, the list. Tony Schumacher. How Tony didn't win a race this year is absolutely beyond me, but he didn't. That shows you the depth. Those top 5 or 6 cars in Top Fuel are amazing. Then obviously they drop off a little bit from performance this year, but still a bunch of hitters in that class just haven't found their way. But what Dell did amazed me, kind of, but didn't really. His pulling the pin shocked me and didn't shock me. Dell's been at this for 20-some years. And a phenomenal driver and funny car and everything else. And I guess now he's opening a new chapter in his life. And I've seen that people say, oh, how's he going to do as a tuner? Dell tuned his own funny car. Dell tuned the Alanabi funny car after they lost their crew chiefs. And Dell learned a lot from Alan Johnson and is probably more well-versed as running a funny car than Alan Johnson has ever been or ever will be, for that matter. So I think Dell, and if he is doing the deal with Alexis, I think people are going to be surprised and pleasantly surprised. And I think Alexis is going to do a great job. I think that she's got definitely a lot of learning to do. She's going to learn some different things, switching from the alcohol ranks. But, I'm going to be talking to Dell because I'd like to help her through just a little bit, tell her some of the things that I know. And I think that's going to be amazing. I really do.
Everyone is very excited about Alexis coming into the sport for obvious reasons like her marketability and the backing that she brings, but also in my conversations with her, the passion for drag racing. Here's someone who could genuinely be doing anything else, whether it be just sitting on the beach or traveling the world, and yet she chooses to come out and run 300 miles an hour in one of the toughest classes in all of motorsports, NHRA funny car.
I may have met her once or so. I really can't remember. It might have been in passing, but I know Jeff Aranda and I know some other people that are close to her, and they said that girl has a lot of fire. Now, she's got to do it classy. She can't obviously do it like I do it, like the pig that I am. But with the connections her father has, and if she works hard at it, she can bring NHRA single-handedly to the next level. Not that Force's daughters aren't obviously going to help, but Alexis can give us a whole new realm and a whole new door to open up to NHRA and the fans and to bring new fans along there. And, she's got a classy operation, a great car. Money's not going to be an issue with parts and things like that. I've got the utmost respect for Del Worsham. I think that he'll be able to get this thing handled. They're going to work out of Coletta's operation. So they got blower dynos. They've got everything they possibly could need to make this thing right. So I'm looking for big things from her. I know that she's got the drive and she wants to do it. So I think the world is hers. She's just got to grab it.
Very interesting. Only bummer, though. I love to see champions defend their titles.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to not see a Top Fuel car with a number 1 on it. And I know that was a big thing for us, for myself. Every week, every run, you get a printout of what everybody's incremental times are. And I always like to look for the number 1 that was on there. And fortunately, I got to see that 4 years, the number 1 that I chased and followed the incrementals. That's a big thing. But Dell's been doing it for a long time. He knew the decision. I'm sure that wasn't just a gut reaction. Hey, I'm the champ. I'm going to quit. And Dell is a young man. He could always come back. He left it open in the awards banquet in his speech that, maybe someday he and his dad could be world champs and they could do it again. And, so it's no big deal. It's not like that Dell's 70 years old and can't drive again. So you never count anything out in this day and age.
Absolutely. You can always change your mind. And speaking of surprise retirements, we had another one of the other legends of the sport, Kenny Bernstein, as an owner this time, decides now is the right time to close the doors and he retires from NHRA racing as well.
You know, Kenny is one of the few of a handful that has made an extremely good living in drag racing. And he and the others that have done that have done it by working extremely hard every day. You know, Kenny was one of the first people that I met when I became a professional. He and I didn't care for each other in the beginning and became close friends, became golfing friends. And the more I was around Kenny, the more I was in amazement and in awe. Not only is Kenny Bernstein one of the best drivers that ever sat in the seat of a dragster or a funny car, without question, there is nobody, even John Force, that is more professional than Kenny Bernstein. We would play golf, and people would know who we were, and they would comp us the round of golf. Kenny would put them on his mailing list. Before we left the parking lot of the golf course, he'd have his secretary in Southern California writing a thank you letter and sending some goodies to the people for doing the, letting us have a free round of golf or doing certain things. Kenny is a sponsor's dream. I know he's taken Copart to the next level. You know, they were involved with Kevin Harvick and Carl Edwards, and they ended up with Kenny Bernstein. And I think they saw a lot of value in that. Kenny showed them a whole new way to market their products and or their business. And I'm telling you, if you've ever spent any time with him, he's an eloquent man. You can't not like him if you get to sit down with him. Very businessman and very busy at the racetrack. So there's also the times that you catch Kenny when you probably didn't want to catch him, because he'll definitely let you know if you're being rude to him or he's busy talking to someone. You don't want to interrupt his speech, which, you know, goes without saying. But never on this earth is there more a professional person, I think, that's ever been a drag racer than Kenny Bernstein. And him and Cheryl, I'm sure, are going to enjoy themselves. Retirement, have a hard time thinking Kenny's going to keep his hands. There's only so many golf courses Kenny can go to. But I'm sure Kenny's going to have his hands in some certain things. I know I'd like to talk to him a little bit more about promoting my son Dominic and helping find funding in his open wheel endeavors. And I'm telling you, I'd be all ears and no voice back to him. It's all listening with Kenny, because he definitely knows what to do.
Well, I can tell you that I was the recipient of those thank you letters and emails after we do interviews on WFO radio, and I'm thinking, wow, if I'm getting these letters, this guy is a pro.
Absolutely a class act. You will not find one better than Kenny Bernstein.
Absolutely, and we are certainly going to miss him and everything that he brought to the sport of NHRA drag racing. Now, moving on to Funny Car, Gary. We have a new champ in Funny Car, a new personality. He came into the sport just a couple of years ago and really electrified a lot of people. Last year experienced the heartbreak of losing the championship to John Force. This year comes back, wins the championship in a run over Cruz Pedregon, then goes on to win the final round over Robert Hight with a blockbuster run, I believe the third quickest run of all time, with a 4-flat. Matt Hagan, give me your thoughts on this kid.
I got to tell you, he was so depressed and so devastated last year. And I've got to be honest, I don't know for what reason. That kid hung as tough as any veteran, anybody that I've ever seen. He did a great job his first year with Don Schumacher Racing. I understand the devastation of losing. Obviously, nobody loves, but it was nothing he had done. He went to the gym. He lost a bunch of weight. He made himself even stronger mentally than he was before. The kid wanted it, and he showed it, and I'm telling you, he drove the wheels off of that thing. You know, how about the crew chief? Kind of a wild man, kind of a loose cannon, if you will. You know, he hung tough, and they ran low ET, and they just finished these guys off with great reaction times and low ET of the whole meet to outrun Robert Hight and Jimmy Prock. Are you kidding me? My God, that whole diehard team is just, I mean, I don't even know what to say. The kid, I watched his I call him a kid because he is a kid, his speech and how he loves his wife. And, you know, I mean, if you weren't touched by that, I don't know what you could do. I mean, I was amazed. He hung tough. I hated to see Zippy not win the thing. I hated Caps not, Caps, again, is another guy that's a world champion that just hasn't gotten the ring, and I'd love to see him get it. Mike Neff, I don't know what's going to happen from there, but what a chase. I thought, Cruz had a shot at it. Another bunch of animals thrown into a ring, and Hagan came out on top. And I'm going to tell you, anybody that thinks he didn't deserve it needs their head examined, my opinion. I thought he did a great job. My hat's off to him. Don't know him very well. Know his dad's got money. Know that he took a lot of heat for buying his ride, per se. But I'm going to tell you what, he's climbed through the rubble. He's done it. He's outdriven the best, and I don't care if his dad's got money or doesn't got money. He's taking care of Die Hard. He's taking care of Don Schumacher, and I think that whole team and whole bunch of DSR should be very proud Matt Hagan.